There was trouble in Kansas City. Trouble, it starts with a T and rhymes with V, and it stands for vote, as in last month's election. More than a month after the balloting, the Kansas City Board of Elections is still trying to figure out which voters were not eligible or even real. Correspondent Jeff Goldblatt reports they're blaming it on an advocacy group for poor people.
It typically takes 2 months for election officials to analyze the data from an election in Kansas City. November's vote, however, might not be fully processed until spring.
We're way behind the curve this time.
Election Board Director Ray James blames the liberal advocacy group Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, known as Acorn. 3 former Kansas City workers face federal charges for submitting bogus registration cards. Authorities are looking for a 4th worker.
They basically raped our voter rolls in a very abusive and irresponsible way.
Of the 35,000 cards Acorn hand-delivered during its Get Out the Vote campaign, James characterizes 85% of them as trash, littered with fictitious names and forged signatures, not matching election lists.
How do we know who we should put on the rolls when there's 10 or 12 of the same name?
Bogus names, he says, did make it onto the rolls. How many and whether illegal votes were cast are questions James cannot answer until the election has been analyzed. Acorn leadership characterized all this as a witch hunt.
People always pick on Acorn. They never look at the good things that we do for the community.
Acorn's local board president, Claudia Harris, says her organization, by registering low and moderate income earners, plays a critical role in the election process. She applauds the arrest of those charged with breaking the law, but argues it's unfair for Acorn as a whole to be indicted in the court of public opinion.
It was not our fault they was indicted. They knew the rules before they went out there.
And yet the St. Louis Election Board, where 5,000 Acorn registration cards were turned over to federal investigators, reported irregularities similar to those in Kansas City. Now election officials from both cities tell Fox they're considering legal action to recover costs spent on analyzing Acorn's applications. They're also lobbying state lawmakers to introduce legislation which would stiffen criminal penalties for submitting fraudulent voter registration cards. But many political observers say it's incumbent upon Acorn to reform itself first.
For their own sake, they need to, if they're going to stay in the business of registering voters, because I think in the future election officials are going to be highly suspicious of any new registration forms they hand in.
Amid this investigation into Acorn, workers here are doing their best to get ready for another election. On February 27th, Kansas City will be holding primaries for the position of mayor and city council members. In Kansas City, Missouri, Jeff Goldblatt, Fox News.
Vermont Democratic Senator Pat Leahy, the incoming chairman of the Judiciary Committee, put the Bush administration on notice today that it can expect tougher oversight in the new Congress of programs in its war on terrorism.